Welcome back to the channel, the place where hip-hop stories hit deeper, the layers get peeled back, and the truth never stays hidden for long. Today, we're stepping into a moment that shook the whole culture because the pain in Beanie Sigel's voice, you could feel it through the screen. It wasn't just another interview clip. It felt like watching somebody finally say out loud what a lot of artists only whisper about behind closed doors. You've got Beanie out here grinding on a food truck, trying to rebuild his life and his pride from the ground up. And on the other side, you've got Bleek, Memphis Bleek, the same guy Beanie says Jay-Z used to help write for, sitting on millions, living comfortable and chilling in peace. That split screen alone feels like a scene out of a Hollywood drama, one guy in survival mode, the other in legacy mode. And then you hear lines like, blink over their running deuce. Glee getting that deuce check, you feel me? So I said he under jail, Glee knew what he was doing. That's not just barbershop talk. That's Beanie hinting at how certain people in the camp were always going to be protected, no matter what happened, while others got left to figure it out on their own. This wasn't just about ghostwriting or some old Roc-A-Fella rumor. What Beanie said pulled the curtain back on how Jay-Z really operated behind the scenes. Jay wasn't just the frontman superstar, he was the chess player. He was the one moving pieces, protecting reputations, and making sure the right people stayed close enough to benefit, but not always close enough to question the strategy. Jay made sure everyone around him looked strong, even if it meant covering for their weak spots. And when Beanie explained that in his view Jay was writing, or at least heavily assisting, some of Bleek's verses, it wasn't delivered like a diss. He said, Bleek, that's my guy, Bleek good, no matter what people say about Bleek music, Bleek don't never gotta make a record again, Bleek cool, Bleek good, I'm the one on the food truck selling fish. That's not hate, that's reality talking. To really understand why that hit so hard, you gotta rewind. Beanie Sigel came into the game out of South Philly, known for that raw, uncut street energy. He signs with Roc-A-Fella, drops albums like The Truth and the Reason, becomes the voice of the struggle for the label. When Jay needed someone to bring that gritty edge to balance out the polished radio records, Beans was that guy. He was on the front lines in records, in beefs, and even in real-life situations. Memphis Bleek, on the other hand, was a different kind of story. He's from Marcy like Jay. He's the kid Jay brings in early. Fans heard him as far back as Coming of Age on Reasonable Doubt *. Jay was on record saying Memphis Bleek is gonna be a new and improved Jay-Z. On Hard Knock Life, he famously said Bleek would always be good as long as Hov was alive. That's not just a co-sign, that's a promise on wax in front of the whole world. So when Beanie talks about Jay writing or guiding Bleek's verses, you have to see it in that context. Jay saw Bleek like a younger brother, almost like a protege in a movie where the main character is shaping the next generation. Beanie even says he can understand Bleek's loyalty. Put it like this, he says. I could understand Bleek's loyalty to Jay because he had Jay as a ghostwriter. Whether you take that literally or as heavy guidance in the studio, the message is the same. Bleek was protected in ways Beanie never felt he was. And then you've got those interview moments where the host says, speaking of Bleek, right, did you see where Dame said that Jay, he was writing for Bleek? Why didn't Bleek take over Roc-A-Fella? Cause I remember he opened up Volume 2 *. He was on the intro and there was a rumor around that album that was Jay's final album, so it looked like Jay had it all laid out for him to blow up. And the response comes back, I mean, I don't think Beanie wanted to take over. I don't think he had the ability to. That one line changes the whole conversation. Now we're not just talking about talent, we're talking about design. This was loyalty, power, strategy, and control all mixed together. The real blueprint wasn't just in the songs or the album covers. It was in the relationships Jay decided to build, and more importantly, the ones he decided to protect at all costs. Now before we go even deeper into this, pause for a second. If you're into these kinds of real breakdowns, the ones that cut past the headlines and into the heart of the story, make sure you like this video and subscribe to Realistic TV Exposed, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a deep dive into hip-hop's real narratives. Back to it, in one of those clips you hear, Jay was writing a lot of his rhymes. So if Jay retired, that meant he was out of business as well, you know what I'm saying? Like if he's still making records, Jay can't retire. Jay was writing his record, ask Beans about it, you know. That's a heavy statement because it implies that Bleek's entire career was tied to Jay's pen and presence, not just Jay's cosign. Now to keep it fair and authentic, Memphis Bleek has pushed back in different interviews over the years, saying Jay didn't write all his verses and that nobody can write another man's life. He's acknowledged that Jay would sometimes give a line, a hook, or a direction, but Bleek stands on the fact that he wrote for himself. So what you're really hearing from Beanie is his perspective, his experience of how things felt inside that camp. And sometimes, perception inside the circle can be just as powerful as what's actually confirmed on paper. Because when you listen to Beanie talk, when you hear that weight in his voice, you realize something important. He's not talking like a hater. He's not jealous. He's not bitter in the petty sense. He's hurt. Hurt because he helped build a dynasty brick by brick, bar by bar, risk by risk. And yet, when it came time for people to be set up for life, he doesn't feel like he landed where he should have. When he says, did he write for Blee? Yeah, did he write for Blee? Yeah, man, of course, Jay looked out on a lot of, you can hear it, you dudes don't get it. Come with it, fifth loaded with slugs that'll rest in your fitted, it's Morocco. Just pay attention, he always cheated for Blee. He's not just talking about lines on paper. He's talking about how the system was tilted to make sure Bleek never looked weak standing next to Jay. And that's where the gossip energy comes in because now fans start asking, if Jay was willing to cheat for Bleek, did he ever want Beans to shine too bright? Did he want Beanie to be the fearless soldier but not necessarily the guy who'd be financially bulletproof when the empire shifted? Nobody inside the camp has fully laid that out, but you can feel those questions under the surface of every clip. When Beanie talks about tracks that were supposed to feature him, Jay, and Bleek, he says things like, if us three was on a record together, cause if I ain't right there with Jay, I ain't too far behind him. Come on, man, Bleek wouldn't have stood a chance. That's my brother, Bleek, no. That's not just bravado, that's him saying he knew what he brought to the table, and he also knew the politics behind who ended up where on the record. Beanie wasn't throwing shade when he said, I'm on a food truck while Bleek is living good. He was speaking from a place of raw honesty. It's what happens when money starts moving faster than friendships, when success grows bigger than the brotherhood that built it, and that dynamic is bigger than Roc-A-Fella. We've seen this movie run again and again in hip-hop. Look at G-Unit, the way things played out between 50 Cent and Game or 50 and Young Buck. Look at Cash Money, Juvenile, BG, Turk, Lil Wayne all having public fallouts over money and contracts. Look at TDE and how fans speculated about Kendrick Lamar's departure and what it meant for the rest of the roster. The pattern is almost predictable. The come-up is about family, the success phase is about survival and leverage. One voice in the clip even says, he ain't right all bleak though, we ain't going to do that though. They making it like he wrote all bleak cause that's a lie, he ain't right all bleak. He wrote enough though, especially with records when it was me, Jay, and Blee. He had to keep up, but yeah, did I actually witness it or see it? No. That's the gray area right there. No paperwork, no studio footage of Jay literally writing Bleek's entire verses line for line, but enough behind the scenes coaching that it made a difference. Every powerful crew eventually hits that moment where the checks come in, the status shifts, and somebody in the circle realizes the business didn't love them back the same way the crew did. Somebody always ends up feeling overlooked, underpaid, or quietly erased from the history books. The come-up is family. The business is cold calculation. Beans even admits, no, I ain't never see him sit down and like, yo, you gotta say it like this. But you knew I knew. That's that studio energy every artist understands. Nobody has to spell out what's happening, you can feel it. Then there's the big question, so how does that work? Cause Jay, he don't write? Jay is famous for saying he doesn't write his lyrics down, that he keeps them in his head and then records. Beanie responds, I don't know, I just know it was like, I don't know how he did it. I just know like we was doing a * Dynasty album and every record that we all supposedly got on, it always was just me and Jay on the verse. And then one day I came in the studio. He describes walking in and suddenly Bleek is on 4 of the records he'd never seen him record. Let's just say it was 5 records that was me and Jay and Bleek was supposed to be on and he wasn't on none of them for weeks. And one day I come to the studio and Bleek on 4 records. Damn, when he do them, so I wasn't there, so I don't know how they sessions went, but I know he had a little assistance. He got alley-oop. That alley-oop is what keeps coming back. Somebody made sure Bleek looked solid whenever the public was watching. Now zoom out, Roc-A-Fella eventually splits, Jay goes one way, Dame another. Can-I grows into a giant on his own. State property, the group Beanie led kind of fractures. Beanie catches legal cases, attempted murder charges he beats, then prison time on weapons charges, later tax issues. His career momentum gets interrupted over and over by real-life problems. That's not rumor, that's on court records and news reports. During some of those stretches, Beanie has spoken about how alone he felt. He's alluded to expecting more support from people he rode for. He's admitted that he made his own mistakes, too. But when you put that next to him watching Bleek stay consistently good, it's easy to see why that clip hit people like a punch. Meanwhile, Bleek has said in multiple interviews that Jay put him in a position where he never had to worry about money again, investments, business ventures, opportunities behind the scenes. And Jay has publicly said on records that as long as he's alive, Bleek will be fine. That is real loyalty. The debate is whether that same energy should have been extended to Beanie, considering everything he did for the brand. Because Beanie represents the dudes who were part of the foundation, part of the blueprint, part of the grind that built the empire, but not necessarily part of the payout when the dust settled. That's a pain a lot of artists know too well in rap and in Hollywood. You see actors who carried entire TV shows in the 90s talking now about how they never saw syndication money, while the producers got rich for decades. Beanie wasn't crying about the concept of ghostwriting. Ghostwriting has always been part of the industry, reference tracks, writers' camps, hooks getting passed around rooms. He was crying about how the game treats the very people who helped build its legends, the ones who risk the most on the front end and sometimes get the least on the back. Let's keep it honest, Jay-Z did what a lot of bosses in this industry do. He played chess, not checkers. He made sure Bleek was straight for life. He protected the brand, protected the legacy, protected the money. He thought long-term, catalogs, masters, business deals, streaming partnerships. In that equation, not everyone gets the same level of protection. When someone says, blink over their running deuce, Glee in that dust check, you feel me? So how they say he under jail, Glee know what he was doing. What they're really saying is, some people had lifelines built in, others didn't. In this game, being great doesn't guarantee security, being protected does. That's why Beanie's story hits deeper than people think. This isn't really about who wrote what line or who made more per show. It's about how the game changes the second the cameras shut off and the blogs stop caring. One day you're in the studio shoulder to shoulder, making classics that define a generation, and the next day everybody's living completely different lives. The brotherhood you thought was unbreakable suddenly feels like a memory. And Beanie, he's the voice of every artist who helped build a kingdom, only to realize the kingdom didn't have room for everybody when the crown got heavy. You just gotta pay attention, man. Bleek who? That's my guy. Bleek good. No matter what people say about Bleek music, Bleek don't never gotta make a record again. Bleek cool, Bleek good. I'm the one on the food truck selling fish. Hey, I'm good, really good though. That's my brother, I'm peace. That's him trying to keep his pride and his love for Bleek while still telling his truth. But here's where it cuts even deeper. Because Beanie's pain isn't just his own, it's something a lot of artists in this culture quietly carry. One day you're in the studio every night, living off adrenaline, chasing the dream with people you consider family. The next, you're watching those same people on award stages, red carpets, and private jets, living a life you never even got a real shot at. That kind of shift doesn't just hit your bank account, it hits your identity. It makes you question every risk you took, every bar you wrote, every beef you jumped into for the team. Beanie was the muscle, the soul, the voice of the struggle in Roc-A-Fella's golden era. Bleek was the protege, the mascot, the one Jay always said would never fall as long as he breathed. And Jay kept that promise. He made sure Bleek stayed good forever. But who made sure Beanie stayed good? That's the question hanging in the air like smoke. This is the part nobody in the industry likes to admit. Hip-hop runs on loyalty during the struggle, but business runs on strategy during the success. And Beanie found himself caught right between those two worlds. He was Jay's childhood friend from the projects. He was Jay's little brother. He wasn't the chosen heir. He was the warrior everybody relied on until the war was over. Then the war ended and Beanie was left standing alone. Listen to his tone in those clips. It's not anger, it's heartbreak. It's a man realizing the empire he helped protect didn't protect him back. That's a pain that sits in your chest for years. That's the type of pain that makes a grown man's voice crack on camera. Because Beanie wasn't supposed to be working a food truck. Based on what he poured into that label, he was supposed to be set up like the rest. He was supposed to be eating off the legacy he helped create, touring nostalgia shows, getting royalty checks, doing documentaries, maybe even executive roles behind the scenes like some artists get once they're older. Instead, he's looking at Bleek's mansion, Jay's billion-dollar portfolio, and wondering where the system failed him and where he might have failed himself. That's the kind of internal conflict that never makes it to the press releases. But here's the wild part, none of this is unusual. This is the same story artists talk about off-camera in studios, in green rooms, and at Hollywood after parties. The industry loves your voice, your bars, your energy until the next wave comes. And when the hype moves on, you better hope somebody cared enough to pull you up instead of letting you fade into remember him status. Beanie's pain is a blueprint of a broken system, one that rewards loyalty with memories instead of money, that expects artists to stay grateful even when the bag never reached their hands. And when you hear him say, I'm on a food truck, that's not embarrassment, that's honesty. It's a reminder that fame never equals security, success never equals stability. The game pays who it wants, not who objectively deserves it the most. Beanie loved the dynasty, but the dynasty didn't love him back the same way, and that's where this whole story stops being just entertainment and starts being a warning. Next thing you know, you're out here grinding just to keep your name alive while everybody else from your era is sitting in mansions, and living off old royalties and catalog sales. It's a harsh reality check for anybody who ever believed loyalty was stronger than a contract. Because when the lights fade and the labels move on to the next hot act, the truth hits you fast. In hip hop, loyalty is emotional, business is ice cold. And if we're being brutally honest, this whole situation exposes something the industry never wants to say out loud. Some people get protected, some people get paid, and some people get forgotten. That's the part nobody teaches you when you're young and hungry in the studio, or when you first start getting looks from labels and Hollywood managers. Nobody pulls you aside and says, "Yo, you might help build a classic and still not see classic money." But no matter what came after, Beanie is still respected. His pen game, his presence, his energy, they helped shape Roc-A-Fella culture in a way money can't erase. Every time somebody revisits that golden era with J.Y. Cam State Property, the whole movement, Beanie's voice is right there in the middle of it. Whether people want to admit it or not, he's part of that foundation, a brick in the dynasty, a chapter in the story that can't be rewritten or edited out. And the fact that he's still here, still standing, still telling his truth after everything he's been through, that's the same raw realness that made people fall in love with that era in the first place. It wasn't just the music. It was the honesty, the hunger, the heart behind it all. So now I've got to ask y'all, and I want real answers. Do you think Beanie Sigel deserved more from Jay-Z after everything he did for Roc-A-Fella? Or was Jay-Z just playing smart, long-term business to keep his empire protected and running smooth, even if it meant some people would feel left behind? Because this debate has the whole culture split. Some say Jay did what he could and can't save everybody. Others say if Bleek could be protected for life, Beans should have been too. I want to hear where you stand. Drop your thoughts in the comment section. Don't hold back. Tell me exactly how you see it. And while you're here, make sure you like this video, subscribe to Realistic TV Exposed, share it with somebody who loves hip-hop history, and hit that notification bell so you never miss another deep dive into the stories the industry doesn't like to talk about. We've got more breakdowns, more truth, more history, and more wild, real-life plot twists from the world of hip-hop and entertainment coming your way. Thanks for rocking with us.